welcome to the Coalesce podcast. My name's Grant,
And I'm Meg.
and today we are going to take a look at bringing back a random question, and we're going to use something called the Coalesce service. Now, we try to do most of the work that we're doing on this little questions app during the podcast. However, Meg has gone out of her way and has done something, as you can probably see on the screen.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I went out of my way. I copied the Cedar code into an AI LLM and told it, hey, add some more questions. And it almost got it right the first time. It started trying to add tags to my question. So I had to say, no, don't change my data model. And then it did it, and it went through and figured out we were doing.
Do we actually know if the answers are right?
I mean, like they look right, like Rome. I don't know, Tokyo. Yeah, they look correct.
Okay. Great. It's going to test our states and capitals knowledge around the world, or countries and capitals.
Yeah, maybe leave a comment if any of these are incorrect.
But in order to get a good random question, Meg aptly pointed out, it's like, hey, if we only have 2 questions, that's not like a very fun random sample. So we needed to get some more stuff in there. So she went ahead and did that. So the question is how to do this. So you could do it on the front end. You could literally ask the front end. Like there's a count method. You could easily get the count of a collection, pick a number randomly, and go to the server and get the number. That's completely possible. However, we would like to actually create a service that does this for us. It's something where it's actually calculated on the server side so that we don't have to do anything tricky. We could do kind of a skip take client side, but let's go ahead and do that on the server side. I'm just going to see what that process looks like. So up to this point, we have only been working inside of the actual classes. So the question class and the answer class, and everything we've done has been in there with around data sources and behaviors and things like that. We can actually create another class called service that is going to allow us to have new endpoints that we create. So Meg, let's go ahead and build one of those out. And these get built in the data project. So we're building services. And again, these are just the business processes that will then get exposed as API endpoints.
Yeah, and then the other benefit too for building it on the server side is it's much easier to test.
Much easier to test.
Just writing C# tests is just easier than front end tests, in my opinion. Right. And it's a little bit more robust. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, because we're making a service, is I like to put all my services under a folder called services, just because once you make one, you tend to have a whole bunch more coming along with it. So services, and then we're going to add 2 files. You actually only need 1 file, but I'll explain the benefit of adding the 2. So we're going to add an iQuestion service. We're going to add an interface.
Sure.
And we are going to add, we'll go back and make that an interface. I could probably pick that from this menu. It's okay. And then a question service.
And this is just kind of your standard service like pattern. You're going to make an whatever it is, and you're going to make the actual service. Now, if we only have 1, you don't technically need this because you can just dependency inject the actual thing. People have very strong opinions about whether this is right or wrong. So, I mean, the pragmatic ones would say, hey, just use the class. The ones that are more purist would say, go the other way.
Yeah.
And go ahead and use the even if you never implement anything else.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say why I prefer this
awesome
pattern. 1, it's easier to test. Now,
why does it make it easier to test?
So you can mock your service.
Okay, so assuming you need to mock the service, again, that would be, I would say that's another
so thing. Which isn't, you should never write your code so that it's like, I'm of the opinion that you shouldn't just start like doing all this stuff to your code to make it more complex just so you can test it. But this is one benefit of interfaces, is it makes it easy to mock and test. The other benefit of these interfaces is the way that Coalesce treats the interface versus the POGO, or the plain old object class here. So if I was just to do this on my class, let's put a little dummy method in here real quick. Public void my method just does something. This will eventually be our random service method, but so the way that this works is if I don't have an interface, I have to put this attribute, Coalesce service, and then I have to tag each one of these as a Coalesce method. If I do this in my question service, my interface here, I can just do Coalesce service, and then anything that I expose on my interface will be a Coalesce method. I don't have to put an additional attribute. So then over here, it becomes very clear. Anything that's on the interface is exposed. Anything not on the interface is not exposed. which I like because it's very explicit. Now, if you put another
I
method
think
in
one
here,
could also argue that having Coalesce on every method in the class that you want to expose is also quite
that's
explicit.
fair. That's
I mean,
fair.
it's yeah, so, okay, great. I mean, so there's a choice here. Like you can do some different things, and especially if you're doing some mocking and if there's some testing around this, again, it kind of depends on exactly what you're doing, but whether sometimes services, I mean, it's really easy to test services, so there's really no reason not to do that. Whether you need to end up mocking them is whether you need to pass them into something else later on. But yeah, that's cool. Awesome.
Yep. So there's that. So let's go ahead and actually like make a real method. So we're probably going to make a method that returns back our question. We kind of debated if we wanted to do a DTO or not.
We'll eventually do a DTO, like where it returns something else. But right now, we're actually just going to return the question object, which you don't have to. You could actually make it different. You can return any object when you return void, and it doesn't make any difference.
See how much Copilot's going to do for me. Absolutely nothing. Okay.
Yeah, you're getting nothing.
Great.
So now in order to do that, we're going to need some kind of access to the database, right?
Yeah.
So because we're using dependency injection for our database, how are we going to get that in here?
So you can use dependency injection and put that right into your constructor. Now, something to be clear, maybe we should do this before we go any further, is that you have to hook up your question service for DI to work.
Right. So you actually have to go understand a little bit about how DI works. Let's go ahead and do that. That's cool. So we're going into program CS and we're going to add that as a service that is in the service catalog.
Yep. And I usually like to put these near other services, which is kind of over here. So we can just kind of put it here. This is kind of our first thing we've hooked up, but and so there's add scoped, add singleton, and add transient. We usually will do a scoped for these services. I don't know if we want to describe.
Yeah, so scope is just going to be scoped to the call that you're making right now. So you're going to get an instance per HTTP call. And so we don't use singletons in this case. So like we don't use static methods. These are instance methods, so they're not static classes.
Yep.
And that just works a little better because you can control the lifetime and multi-threading works, and there's a bunch of things like that. So the fundamental organization of Coalesce is that it actually creates one of these classes for each call, incoming HTTP call, and then news it up and you get a new instance of any other scope variables you ask for. So like, for example, your database, your DB context is also going to be scoped. So you're going to get one per call, again, the incoming web call. So
yep. So there we've added that. Now DI should work with this. So now we can either do a primary constructor or the traditional constructor.
It makes it super easy to do it just right in line, but you can do it.
We'll do it in line. Some people get mad about this, but I'm starting to like it.
Yeah, you kind of used to it. I feel like I don't like things because it's new a little bit.
Yeah.
But sometimes I really just, it's like, oh no, this is too terse, or it's like, it's not really helpful that much. But
I've started to like this. So we're gonna do a primary constructor. This is new, kind of to C#.
So you're basically getting a public, or it's a private method.
Yeah.
Or a private variable.
Yeah, it's a private property.
Yeah.
But it looks
does it make it a full property? It's just a field.
I believe it's a it's a field.
Private field.
Yeah. Private field. So there's your DB being passed in, and then down here we can just access that, right? And
we could also pass those in on the actual command line as well if you wanted to. I mean, if you needed something special for just one, let's say you had multiple ones, you don't want to pass it in the top of them. You could just pass it in there.
Something interesting to note here too is that Coalesce will actually auto pass some things into your. When you pass it into here, you sometimes have to put the inject property on it if it's a dependency injected thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are two things you don't have to do that for. You don't have to do that for your claims principal, and you don't have to do that for your app-DB context. So I could, like Grant's saying, just do this. But if I had another service
that I wanted show them how the user, if you wanted to pass the user in as well, so you get a bunch of user information.
Yeah. Am I remembering this correctly? I think so. There we go. So you can pass that in. Now, if you had another service, let's say we had an answer service and we need to do something on the answer service, you'd have to put inject in front and say.
Yeah, so we'd know, hey, go look for this in dependency injection. It knows to look for those two things because they're fundamental to the Coalesce infrastructure.
Yep.
The other things, anything else is not. And so it doesn't know to go and find the object.
Yeah.
In dependency injection. So in this case, we don't really need anything.
Yeah.
Now we could pass in a parameter too, as well. I mean, that's totally possible, but we're just going to leave it no parameters this time. Again, you literally just put a parameter on the
whatever you wanted to put on here. But I don't think we need any parameters.
Let's go ahead and return that. It's going to be a relatively straightforward thing, right?
Yeah.
Almost just return it in one line, but
yes.
but we have to get a random number first.
We do. We need to get the random number.
So we're going to do a skip take. We realize there's other ways to do this, but we're just going to do the pretty simple thing in this case.
Oops. That is like almost. Oh no, that's what it
I
was.
think it's
Yeah.
pretty close. Yeah,
Great. That's exactly what I want. All right, great. And now we're gonna go.
Have an int, 0, and the count. Although we may have to do count -1. One of those off by 1 errors. Well, no, it's not. It's
No,
never going to
you
be up
don't
to that
need
number.
that.
So
I
it
think
is
you
count
just
is okay. Actually, okay.
Yeah, I think you just do.
Yep, because it's 0 to up to, but not including the other number.
Yeah, and then
Skip and take 1.
I meant to put a 1 there. There we
I
go.
guess you could do first, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we could also do a first or default. And then I think.
I think you have to do it first.
No, I do have to do it
first.
Great, there we go. Okay, that is how you get a random question.
Now, what's going to happen is it's actually going to take all of this stuff and generate the code. We haven't actually shown any of the code
That's generated.
It's generated.
We
We
can
can
look
maybe
at-
show that real quick. Now, if you look real carefully, when you look at references to the class, you see one reference to the class, and that reference is in program CS because we're putting it into dependency injection.
Yeah, well, it's here, but then in here there's a reference.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The reference to the class. Sorry, and then the reference to the method is there, but then we can go back and I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong line there.
Yeah.
But currently there's nothing calling this at this point.
Yeah.
So let's run Coalesce and see what happens.
Yeah. Let's open this guy up.
So again, from your web project or from your data project, you're going to run. From your web project, you're going to run that.
Okay.
The reason you run it from your web project is that's the project that's getting updated.
Yep, they're doing all the generation on.
And there is a Coalesce JSON file. You see that where it says using Coalesce JSON. That's going to show you where all your files are. It has a whole bunch of options in there if you want to go in and change those.
Okay. Looks like I've got something.
Oh, we got something.
File. Let me just try closing and get cracking here.
We have some watch files behind the scenes.
Let's see. It'll work this time. There we go. Okay, now
There we go. We got some extra files.
So,
and you see we get a controller there. We see that. So in the generated files, we get our API clients, we get view models, we get some metadata, which describes all the models. And then we get that generated controller. And so that controller will then have a reference to the class, the service that we just created.
Yep.
And so you can see.
Here's that controller.
Great. Oh, now, and this also works with async. So if we were to put an async and return a task of type question,
yep,
and then made it all async, that also works, and we'll go all the way through as well.
Yep, it'll work just the same. And then these are kind of some of the generated files here. You can see that change during the Git.
Cool.
So, okay, so we can go test this. We'll probably have to come back to C# after we test it, but we'll test it first. Let's launch that.
Yeah, and we're not doing a great job at showing some of the unit testing here, but we're really just trying to give you a sense of how the Coalesce framework works. We're kind of assuming that you know how to unit test things and do all the stuff, but we'll probably touch on that in later episodes. So if you're really interested in unit testing, go ahead and comment. We'll build some of those in.
Let's see, I think I'm getting more conflict here. Okay, so we've got multiple experts with the same name, question service model. Oh, yeah, just because I shouldn't do this. Yeah, I was trying to show an example and I duplicated this code. So let's not do that because we have our interface to describe that as a service. So now it's trying to generate two services.
So it was generating both off the interface and off the.
Yeah, that's what happens when you try and do
class
examples and then you leave stuff in. Okay, there we go. So that's working. We come over to questions. Nothing new here, obviously, because we have to go write some code to call that endpoint. But I'm going to open the network tab just so that we can kind of see stuff happening. And then let me open VS Code. This guy open. Actually, something maybe that's interesting is from here you can just do code dot and that'll open VS Code. So on my other screen. I should go fix those later. Okay, so here we are looking at, oops, sorry. Expand this guy. Let's go back up. Okay, so we're on the question editor. I think we want to go back to this main questions page. So that would be here. So here we're grabbing our questions. We probably just want to put another thing like, I don't know, random question.
Yeah, a little button or something we can just do.
Yeah, or even like whenever you reload the page, we can show it.
Yeah, so we have, that way we don't have to build a whole bunch of UI. So
yeah,
because we want to be able to reuse our question card at the end, right? That's
Yes.
really what we're looking to do. So we don't want to have to rebuild and do a whole bunch more UI on this one. So the question is how do we do that? So instead, we're just going to create an object called random question down here, which will be a observable property here.
I guess I probably should have called this. It's okay. We've called it question service. So now let me just match names.
Yep.
And you can see we have a view model for our question service. And then we have on our question service, we can just question service dot get random question right there. So now
that's an asynchronous call, right? So how do we handle what's coming back?
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting question, and there's a couple ways that you can handle it.
That was really funny. We did interesting question. So it's very clever.
I mean, I didn't mean to, but it is funny that it's a question. Interesting question about the question. So my preference on this is to make a computed property. And the reason for that is that every time that this calls, you can hook it up to a button too, in that case, and like recall it. So every time it calls, the computed property will recompute with the new value there. And the way that you get this value is from the result. So I'll just start writing code because I think I write code better than I explain code.
So when we call get random question, that's actually returning a promise.
Yes.
So you could just do it then on the end of that, or you could await it.
You could.
Either way.
Now, if you do it then, the only thing there is it's harder to reuse when you put it into a button.
Right.
Yeah. So this is the benefit of the computed property, right? Is that it's easier to reuse this random question, and then you just do result, and that should give you your random question. And now we pass that guy there. Oh, it's because it could possibly be null. So we should probably just check.
Do it, yeah. So only display it if there's that. And we can even put a little wait box up there because you can tie it into the whole awaiting thing that we talked about last time with the ball or a spinner or something. Sure.
Surprised that oh, question is not assignable. Question view model. Did we something going on here?
Cool question. That looks good.
Yeah, random question.
Simple random question.
Oh, because it's a question and not a question view model that we're getting back. So
yeah, so we have to change the type to be a question rather than a question view model.
Yeah, or to accept either, because we actually don't do very much, I don't think, on the question.
Yeah, I don't think we're actually calling. So the difference between a question and a question view model is the question is just going to have all of the things that your class has on. The question view model is going to have all the assessors, the accessors for that. So you can make calls and things like that. So
we're not really doing anything with the view model, I don't think. So I guess we're doing.
But I think a question is a question. Are we calling anything on that or not?
I don't think so. No, it's just correct answer. We're just getting the properties, and then we'll have to fix the answer as well, I believe. So
because we opted to use view model there.
We did, and now it's going to bite us.
Yep, that's okay. Just write in code.
Okay, undo that. And this is probably the only thing that we're using, but we can just do answer ID here.
Yep. So in this case, you don't get that stable ID if you're not using it.
Yeah. Okay. Now that should be working. All right. Now I said we would probably have to go back to the C# code. You might start to see why that is, but let's kind of look at this real quick. So
here we have a problem. It shows the question, right? And if you refresh, it shows a different question. Just to make sure we're not just showing the first question.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, great. So just showing a random question. Where are the answers?
Exactly. So this is something that I feel can be maybe difficult to figure out if you're new to Coalesce and you've been writing a lot of stuff with data sources and models, because Coalesce is super helpful and it handles including things for you automatically.
Yeah.
As soon as you go write your own service, you have to do a couple of things yourself. So let's head back to C#. And basically all that you're missing here is includes. So I think we were talking about this a couple of episodes ago where Coalesce will kind of do this include for you. And what we want to include is all our answers. And then I think we also want to include our correct answer, right?
Yeah, right. We have to actually include both, right? Unless we wanted to just do the answer based on the GUID.
Yeah, we
right?
can
So
do
the
that too.
GUID, and I forget how we're actually checking, but if you just check based on the GUID, then it just works.
Yeah, it might be checking based on the GUID.
I think it actually is. So you wouldn't necessarily have to return that, but we can do that. It's fine. We can see what that looks like. Now, I don't think you have to actually restart your code.
You don't have to restart and you don't have to regenerate.
If you're using a current version of Visual Studio, it is going to work. So you don't even have to click that button.
Sometimes.
I
click it because I'm paranoid.
What you need to do, right?
There we go. Maybe not. There we go. Okay, it's mad now.
It's mad. Why is it mad?
For you to skip without specifying ordering. Oh, interesting. Ordering and uses split query mode. This generates incorrect results. Either provide ordering or run query in single query mode. Oh, as single. Oh, maybe I just have to tack on as single query. I wonder if it's mad now that we're including these things because it's trying to do something weird here. Let's see if that will make it happier. See, now it's not.
Yeah, there's certain changes you can make and some changes you can't. So there's an example of one that doesn't like.
So I think we have to restart that one, but it's okay. Hot reload is nice until it isn't nice.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about as single query.
Yeah, well, let's see if it works first.
Then we'll see we need to actually describe it.
Yeah.
Because we always could just do an order by GUID, which is the primary key. And that should probably take care of the problem. So.
Okay, sorry, it's opening up on my other thing here. There we go. Okay, I think this guy is
there we go.
Now.
So talk to us about as single query, since it looks like it works now.
Yeah, so it's interesting that it didn't work until when we had the I guess what's interesting is it didn't work when we had the includes, which maybe I'm not familiar enough with as single query, but basically as single query just runs it. I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to be able to explain this very well. This is like one of those things where it's like, you know what it's doing, but can you explain it? So it's really, it's running it as it sounds, right? As a single query, as opposed to running this into split queries. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, because I know that you can split queries and it will try to do all of.
And I think what it was doing is probably the includes. It was trying to split those into separate queries from the skip take is what I'm guessing it was doing. So that's probably what was happening.
Okay, well, we'll get into that a little bit if we need to, and give you an update in another episode if we need to.
Yeah, if you really were curious, you can actually see the SQL output on one of these windows on this window.
Yep,
and
it'll show you which one it's.
You can kind of debug and see what that's like. You can see what that SQL query looks like. Which it's probably way up in my code right now, but that would be where I'd suggest you go debug it. But basically, it was making it into two queries, and that was confusing the skip take. So I don't know where it was splitting. That's the only thing. So when we added those includes, it started to split those queries up. And as single query just says don't split those up. So I can't tell you where exactly it was splitting, but.
Right, and we probably could have just gone if you have a complicated situation, we could have just returned the GUID, and then gone and just made a single call to get all of the stuff that we want.
Yeah, we could have done that too. Okay. Well, I think that covers getting a random question. So here we are getting that. And let's make sure that this works. Great.
And good. It shows you that. And then the negative answer.
Yep.
Hey, awesome.
Great.
So good. So yeah, so in some future episodes, we'll also show you how to do how to pass in parameters and that. But you can make as many methods as you wanted here, have a very large thing. And you could also, by the way, these are also all in Swagger. So there are Swagger docs associated with these two. Maybe we can.
Yeah, maybe we can go there real
pull that real quick. Just so you can see the Swagger doc. So this gives you an idea of of what's actually going on.
I wonder, do we have to set
We
up
may not
something?
have turned
Yeah,
on.
we might have to go set
So
that
we
up.
may have to set that up. So we'll set that up in another
Yeah.
episode. Give you an idea of how exactly all those things are set up. So anyway, it works out really well. And great. Anything else before we cap?
I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, hey, keep on building great apps with Coalesce.
Thanks all.